Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach at some of the premier homeschool conferences around the world. In fact, I homeschooled all of my 4 children all the way through kindergarten, all through graduation. And people usually want to know, Nicholeen, what's the secret? How did you do it and not burn out? What makes a really good homeschool? And I love talking about homeschool. I'm also known for my parenting and talking about parenting because I teach parenting through the lens of the principle self-government around the world too. And both of those things are going to be important today because they actually go together for this recipe of what makes a good homeschool. In this video, we're going to spend some time talking about self-government and then some of the components to a good homeschool that you might not have realized before. All right, so first we have to talk about self-government because all of my teaching, I always start there. That is my guiding principle when it comes to education, relationships, self-improvement, leadership. Of course, there's many principles that I love, but self-government seems to tie them all together because it brings everything back to the individual person's responsibility and ability to make the choices to improve themselves. So what is self-government? That's important for us to know. So self-government is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behavior so that you can control that. So what that means is that a person understands cause and effect. Many people understand cause and effect as it relates to Newton's laws or to like if I touch a hot stove, I might get burned, but they don't understand cause and effect as it relates to their relationships and to their homeschool environment. They don't recognize that if they allow chores to take all day long, for instance, that people will not have a love of learning. If you don't have a love of learning, then you're not going to have a good homeschool environment. And if you don't have enough connection to other people, you also don't have enough learning. But let's talk about our relationships too. So did you know that if you yell at your children, they suddenly trust you less? And they try to work around you and manipulate around you? So you've taught them now not to fully trust you. That's cause and effect people don't know. Children don't know that if they don't do what their parents tell them to do, their trust decreases as well. Years ago, I did treatment foster care for troubled teens, and what I recognized was that none of them, even though they were in their teen years, fully understood cause and effect as it related to their own behavior and their own relationships. So when a person learns self-government, they learn the cause and effect of any given situation, and then they possess a knowledge of their own behavior so that they can control them. This means that they know themselves. So when a person learns self-government, they do the hardest thing a person ever does, and that is examine themselves. So a truly self-governed person looks at who they are and says, who ought I to be? And then how am I going to become that version of myself? Then they make a plan for themselves to head in that direction. Now, part of my secret sauce for homeschool is self-government. In fact, one of the classes that I'm asked to give all over the world at homeschool conventions is a class called The Not So Known Secret for Homeschool Success. And I always tell them the not so known secret for homeschool success is actually self-government. So you being able to control yourself as the parent is the key piece at making sure your homeschool does exactly what it needs to. And your children learning how to self-govern is going to be the key piece that helps them become motivated and excited about education. I know that seems a little strange to analyze because most people don't go there. They think it's got to be a curriculum, it's got to be a schedule, it's got to be, and I do have other videos where I talk about homeschool schedules and stuff like that, so be sure and find those. But in this one, I'm hitting straight to the core. The core principle is you learn how to control yourself, you will have good homeschool days. And this means parent and child. But I want to take that a step further and talk to you about what that really looks like in the homeschool. I'm going to talk about what this really looks like in the homeschool and what it's going to do to your relationships. But before we go there, click the subscribe button now. There are many videos on this channel related to homeschooling or parenting, and parenting is homeschooling. Think about it. That is actually the number one lesson you teach your children, is the lesson of family and what all that means. So click on the subscribe button now so that you can improve your family relationships over time. And don't forget that notification bell, because that will let you know when the new videos come out too. So let's talk about what it really looks like in a homeschool if a person is self-governed, because it's going to have a different effect than what normal schooling would have. So when people think of education, they think of a person sitting down at a table or a desk with books and paper and pens, and they are extracting information and recording it. But that's just the academics. That's just the intellectual intelligence. What about the practical intelligence, the emotional intelligence, the social and spiritual intelligence? If you are truly giving someone a full education, all of those intelligences should be part of the educational environment. So what that means is that a person needs to have full picture education. So what does education look like for a child? We're going to draw a picture that I think will help you remember what education should be like. So what does education look like for a child? We're going to draw a picture of a wagon wheel. So the center of the wagon wheel represents the core values, or the maybe morals, the beliefs that you hold dear. These are the things you want to teach your child more than anything. A good work ethic, to be an honest, good person. All of those things are in the core values. So you want to deliver that to the teaching, or to the child. This is the hub of the wagon wheel, okay? So the hub of the wagon wheel is the thickest piece of wood. It carries the weight for the entire load that wheel is going to be driving down the road. So this is super important stuff. All right, so out from that core of the wagon wheel are the spokes. The spokes in our diagram here represent the things that we teach our children. So we might teach our children good hygiene, good manners. We might teach them how to work. We might teach them certain chores or responsibilities. We might teach them how to read, how to do math. Why do we teach our children any of these things? Well, it's because we actually have a core value or principle that makes it so that we think that teaching is important. So why would you teach your child to read, for instance? Probably because one of your core values or principles is freedom. A person cannot decode the world. They can't have a say in the world. They can't say, no, that's wrong, or that would take away our freedom, if they don't know what is being said in the law. And if they can't write it down too, so that they can write to their congressman or their legislator, they need to know how to extract the information. So this leads to freedom. So all of the teaching is rooted in those core values. If it wasn't, we wouldn't bother with the teaching. And there are some things you probably don't bother teaching at your house because you don't find them valuable. You say, okay, I don't know why those people grow a garden. That's not valuable because, you can just go buy the food at the store and it's maybe even cheaper and it's way less work. So you don't find it valuable, so you don't do it. I garden though, and the reason why I garden is because one of my core values and principles is freedom. And I want my children to know that no matter what happens in the world, they can have food for their families. And so for me, that self-reliance that's part of freedom is important. So we teach our children how to grow food at our house as well, and how to can food and cook food and all those kinds of things, right? Okay, so then there's this band that goes around the wagon wheel, and it holds all of this teaching into the core values. This band is what I really want to focus on today, the very most. This band represents the relationship. So a person learns core values and they learn all the things that they need to in your homeschool if the relationship is good with the material and if the relationship is good with you. Now, I know there are many people that will sacrifice the relationship in order to push the chores, in, or to get that teaching done, or to protect a core value. And so what they will essentially do is remove, say this one's math over here, okay? Say this is math, and they're like, my child won't do math. And so they just say, I'm just going to make him do math. And I'm going to force it. We're going to argue about math. So now they are essentially creating a gap in their relationship band. What's going to happen to math? It's going to fall out of the core values. It won't even seem important because the emotions are now bigger than the teaching and bigger than the relationship. So if you sacrifice the relationship and you try to put weight on this and drive it, everything falls out, even the core values. So if you want to make sure your children get the core values in your teaching and they learn all of the subjects that they need to as well, then you're probably going to want to focus very heavily on making sure you have a very good relationship with your child. That is kind of like the secret sauce in homeschool that most people don't talk about. They talk about curriculums and they talk about, narrations and copyworks and all those kinds of things which are important, and I've used many of them, but those things don't do nearly as much good if you don't have a good rapport with the child, if you can't discuss with the child, talk openly with the child, and bond with the child. Those things have to happen first. So let's now talk about how to do that, because that is what's going to make a really great homeschool. So how do we strengthen the relationship with our children? I know some people are homeschooling because the relationship with their child is strained in the first place. So then it seems like, oh no, could I even do it? No, you need to do it. More than ever, you've got to put the focus on your relationship. You know what? At first, just have fun with learning. There's different phases of learning. I have another video where I talk about the different phases of learning, and I'll be telling you about that video at the end of this video because I think you'll really like it. But there are different phases of learning, and the very beginning phase has a lot to do with connection to parent and connection to the teacher. And if there isn't connection to you, you've got to start there, which means sometimes you take a few steps back and you say, let's read together. I'm going to read to you and we're going to discuss. Or let's go on a field trip. Maybe not just one day a week, which a lot of homeschoolers do, but let's go 2 times a week, right? Let's just start going and seeing things. Let's visit grandma. Let's work together. Let's make cookies every Wednesday. Let's do things that are fun, and let's just develop our relationship and strengthen our foundation. Here's the thing. You can learn K through 12 in 4 years if you love learning. That has been proven. So great. So you don't have to stress. So just love learning first. Love being together, and then they will love the learning. Love discussing, and then the sparks will start flying, and then they'll love the learning. That's what you really need to get to. That's what makes a great homeschool. Later, when they learn full self-government, they will know key skills. Skills like how to follow instructions, accept no answers and criticism, accept consequences, disagree appropriately. They'll learn how to keep themselves calm when they get frustrated, and set their schedules and keep to it. That's all part of a good self-government teaching, and I teach that in many places on this channel and on my website, teachingselfgovernment.com. But when a person is fully self-governing, they're bonded to everyone and they're self-motivated. In order for you to teach them the skills they need to be self-motivated, you have to constantly be focusing on that bond. So make sure that all the corrections, all the praises, all the teaching moments, those are all times where you feel closer to your child because you had the moment. It's true, you can feel closer to your child during and after a correction than you even did before. And those corrections can be moments that strengthen the relationship instead of break holes in it and tear it apart. So don't stress. Don't take the time clock so personally. Allow yourself to love each other, to bond together, to love the education, and then you'll hit another phase of learning where you'll have to bring in more beef to that educational environment. Even if your child is 16 and you're just starting to homeschool, make sure you start with just strengthening the relationship first and charting a course for where you want to go together in this educational journey. If you have loved this video, I promised I would give you another one that's going to be great for your homeschooling. It's called 5 Cultures of Great Homeschooling. So click on the link to the 5 Cultures of Great Homeschooling now. You'll learn about the different phases of learning. You'll learn about what will create a great home environment so that you can have the relationships that you hope for and the learning that you hope for in your homeschool. Click on the link now.